Hello and welcome to Data Planet. I'm Emma Davis, and today's guest is Keith Zubchevich, President and CEO of Conviva. Welcome to the show, Keith.
Thank you, and well-pronounced last name. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I did, in fact, stress about it and practice more than once. So thanks very much
Nailed it. You
for
nailed it.
acknowledging. So to start with, can we go back with Conviva? Usually I ask, like, who are your customers and what do you do for them? But you've been with Conviva for over 18 years. Currently, it's a very AI-centric company. So what was Conviva when you started there? Like, where did you get to how did you get to where you are now? And then we'll talk a bit more about where you are now.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question because 20 years ago, what we started the company on and today actually connect now. So we started the company with the premise that every business on the internet could be measured. Because now, you could connect to an end user on the internet, you could measure the experience, and we chose video. So we said, well, there's video on the internet, you need to make sure it's delivered in quality and people can watch it. So let's measure video experience. And then streaming came out. So that's when television said, well, there's this new thing called streaming media. And here we were talking about measuring video experience on the internet. So we ended up being in the perfect position. It was a lot of luck, right? There's clearly people are like, wait, you started a video measurement company before there was video on the internet? The answer is yes, which is a benefit because when the broadcasters like, ABC and ESPN and NBC said we need to build a streaming product, we were the only people that were out talking about the experience of your viewers as you deliver this video through the internet. So that was the premise behind the business. Streaming took off. We built an amazing business. We sit in about 8 billion devices today. We measure tens and hundreds of billions of hours of video every day. So I will go out on a limb and say on your phone, we probably have 5 or 6 sensors because of most of the video apps you watch. We're measuring the video experience and we're translating that back to the broadcasters in real time. So they're able to tune the knobs of if you have something that gets in the way of your experience, they can fix it. And then they start tuning the experience because experience equals engagement, which means that if you have a good experience, people will watch more. So that was how we built the business, measuring video quality experience, telling the publishers good experience equals longer engagement, better outcomes. And we did that for a very long time, and we still do that to this day. So Disney, Hulu, ABC, Peacock are all our customers. And then, this whole thing of AI started coming out, and people start talking about agents. And so we started looking into, well, what is this, first of all, because it came on fast. And the connection that we now make is that as consumers start to engage with agents, it's the same premise applies, which means you need to make sure that that experience is a good experience if you want them to get to the outcome. In the video world, it's experience to engagement. In agentic, it's the experience to outcome. And if you can make that a frictionless experience, you can make it a high quality, efficient experience, then people will buy more from you. So that's where we've now taken exactly the same premise. You're measuring consumer scale endpoints. You're measuring the consumer. You're not measuring the devices that delivered it. I'm not measuring the agent itself because I need to know what is the experience of the consumer. The agent may think I'm perfect, but the consumer's like, that was terrible. So voice and the eyeballs that matter most are the consumers in this equation. So we measure from the consumer's perspective of what is the experience of the agent and how can we help e-commerce companies tune the agent to meet the consumer expectation around efficiency and quality. Very similar to the video market. It's happening now in agentic. So the similarities were eerie. Again, we got lucky. We measured video before streaming. And I would compound that luck to say, oh boy, we're lucky because now the exact same thing we built for video works for consumer-facing agents. So we're very lucky in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, lucky, but also you had at your core a really valuable problem that you could solve. And so you can apply that solution just looks different depending on, the needs of the time. So that how to reduce friction in consumer experience, that's always valuable and always important. So, all right, very cool. Yeah. So you talked about Conviva's original customers being those media companies. Who are your customers now? You talked about e-commerce being really your main focus, but what does a good customer look like for you?
Large enterprise e-commerce. And so the reason why I can talk about our streaming business is because we have those customers for 12 to 15 years and we've worked out partnerships and really solid relationships, strategic relationships where I'm allowed to talk about them. We're now entering e-commerce and we're new, they're new, we have a new relationship, so it's a little awkward where, well, what are you going to say about us? What do you really want? What do you need us for? So we're still playing that game of permission slips. But
Mhm,
suffice to say, we've got airlines, very large enterprise, e-commerce, and travel. So because of, again, compare and contrast to the way this was before, broadcasters had huge businesses and were told by consumers, I want to watch this a new way. So broadcasters had to go to streaming. They didn't want to go to streaming. They had a really good business, but they had to go to streaming. So that's why Conviva was so valuable, was because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a $20 billion company who has no idea how to build a video player and streaming. So I
mhm,
need your help. And it's so funny because now these large airlines and travel companies and e-commerce, enterprise e-commerce companies who literally make 50 billion a year are saying, hey, I have to build this thing called an agent, and I have no idea if I'm doing it right. And you happen to measure at scale. You measure, consumer scale, and you give me real time feedback of what I'm doing well and what I'm not doing well. That's the only way to launch a new technology if you're a $50 billion brand.
yeah,
Otherwise, you're
you
going to
look
create a new business.
so stupid. Like, yeah.
Yes, head of HBO, when she spoke at one of our customer meetings, said the only way to build a TV business on the online is to build a TV quality experience. We're HBO, our brand cannot suffer. And that's exactly what we tell e-commerce is you've built an incredible, successful business. You cannot afford an agent to go out there and start, frustrating your consumers, sending them into dead ends, dropping them, not answering their questions. That will
Mhm.
kill a business you've spent literally decades building. So you need Conviva in a real-time way to measure consumer scale experience of how you're doing and give you that real-time feedback, because consumers don't fill out trouble forms. They just disappear. They don't pick up the phone and say, "Hey, your agent is terrible." They just go somewhere else. So the silent majority of consumer churn is what you're avoiding. And so we measure that. We make sure that we can tell you today you're having a problem.
And so this is relatively new. I mean, AI agents are relatively new. So a better AI agent is even newer. Do you have at this point like measurements of ROI or how much of an impact having Conviva can have on your conversion rate? Because it makes total sense. But, do you have enough data points yet to have some numbers to point to on that?
Yeah. So number one is that we're doubling and in some cases tripling the outcomes of the agent because of the fact that you now have this real time quality checkpoint back. So anybody who's launching an agent is essentially blind. You're just trusting that it's going to get to the outcome you want and make an instrument for the outcome. And they notice, well, wow, I'm not getting to the outcomes. Well, because we measure the experience and we show what went wrong that didn't allow the outcome to happen, we're able to double and triple outcomes of the agent. And that, 100, 200% improvement is not a reach. Like we think there's even more out there as these things hit bigger and bigger scale. The other one is the efficiency piece. So it's not just about the outcome, because you could get every customer to the outcome, but if they were to fill out a form, that's frustrating. I'm frustrated. So we see that we save 3 minutes and 11 seconds of every agent conversation. Save.
Wow.
We just eliminate it because of the fact that we have the context, we have the real time measurement, we collect the patterns, we load it into the agent. And in most cases, agents start off at zero. Like, hi, I'm the agent. And then they start asking the questions. Well,
Mhm.
because we collect consumer patterns from the product, we load that in the agent will already know the consumer. So we not only improve the efficiency of how the agent works, but we can also cut down on wasted context setting, that we will already have that data and load it into the agent in real time so that the agent picks it up and says, okay, I know what you're looking for. I know what happened, and let me get you to where you need to go. So
Mhm.
average 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Now we think about how much time we have in a day, right? We don't have 3 minutes and 11 seconds to sit there and explain something to an agent that I already loaded into the product. Now I'm starting over again. So it's little things like that that we are helping companies launch and make successful, but also make efficient the
Yeah,
agent experience.
absolutely. So, from my background looking at, website conversion rates and time on site and things like that, seconds make a difference between someone getting frustrated and bouncing or actually converting. Over 3 minutes on average, that's bananas. That
Three
is,
minutes
like,
and 11 seconds. Isn't that crazy?
unheard. Yeah, that is wild. If that was something where if I had a client who had a 5-minute path to conversion, and I told them I can cut that down to less than 2 minutes, I mean, I would never run out of clients. It's amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's the same with video. Like go back to video, like the experience and the video start time, for example, which is essentially what we're saying here, matters. Like people aren't going to sit there and wait for the buffer to load for a minute. Like we were saying, we were able to show video viewers left after 10 seconds. You need to get that video starting in 10 seconds. We're doing the same thing here where we're showing like, oh my gosh, we're saving 3 minutes and 11 seconds of the conversation. By the way, there's tokens involved in that on the agent side. You're spending
Mhm.
money on that 3 minutes. You're
Mhm.
you're really frustrating your consumer. So, again, back to my point, you're launching something into the market that could either accelerate your consumers to buying more and having a great experience and returning, or you're launching something that's going to frustrate them, make them spend all day in a loop, and then end up saying, well, first of all, I'm not getting the outcome and I'm never coming back. That's what's at
Yep.
stake. And
Yep.
again, I throw out the beginning, consumers are going to want to buy from an agent. It should be super efficient.
Yeah. Yeah, and y it's easy to imagine how that value compounds over time. Like, if you're doing because of the market you're working with, if you were doing something like B2B enterprise, whatever, it's like, each deal matters, but this is you might have a decades long relationship with your consumers. If I have a good experience with an airline, that's it. That's my airline for life. That's who I want to work with because just the stakes of having the potential to have a bad experience, I can't handle it. I can't handle it while I'm traveling. So this is about yes, that initial conversion, but also about like a brand relationship that can last years or decades.
Yes, because think about it, we're all consumers. It's not like we're trying to figure this out. Like I'm a consumer, so whenever I talk to the team, the product team, about how we should build a product, I'm like, I'm building something that I would want to interface with. I'm using myself as a KPI target, and one of the biggest things that we talk about as we build the product value is there's we call it the attention economy, right? There was a white paper a long time ago. I can't remember the professor's name, but basically it was about the attention economy. That the one thing that is going to be the scarce resource of all things in the world is going to be someone's attention. That when you have it, you have to hold it. And now it's even worse because now everyone has a product, everyone has a digital interface, everyone is going to be having an agent. We're going to self select to the agents that help me and make my day the most efficient. The brand loyalty will fall away because I only have so much time and I love you as a business and you've taken care of me in the past. But man, it shouldn't take me 7 minutes to book a flight. I need to do it in two. And
Mm,
so decisions are going to be made based on efficiency, not necessarily brand. Now, the ideal winners will have both. You'll be a brand and you'll invest in things like Conviva to make sure your agent is optimized and efficient and successful. And you'll create consumer behavior, or you'll get those loyalties. If you don't, you will hit rocks and you will lose consumers. And here's the worst part, they will silently go away. They won't fill out anything, they'll just disappear. Your revenue will fall and you can't figure out why.
mhm. Well, that's a terrifying sales pitch, Keith, but so
Well, I have an order form. Doesn't have to be like that. We
Keith here to brighten everybody's day. Just
I can fix that. We got that. We
yeah.
got you. And we have the history. That's why the best part about this is that everything we do is on a 20-year-old technology that actually runs at scale today, delivering video. Nothing different. Everything is ready to go. We're not a startup. We're not a small company, so it's fun.
Yeah. So speaking of company size, one question I have um, is there a way for you guys or any interest for you guys to move down market? Do you start to run into issues with Conviva's performance if you're working with a slightly smaller brand than those enterprise level brands, either with, data density in order to train the agents or anything along those lines? Or is it just, I mean, those are the biggest fish and it's a valuable problem, so we're gonna start there.
Yeah. The hardest problems represent the biggest challenge for the biggest companies. So that's sort of the logic of us picking the biggest is because you've built a $50 billion business. You cannot afford this thing to crater your business. You have so much at stake. It was the same with the broadcasters. The reason why Disney, Peacock, Paramount Plus, they're all our 10, 12-year long customers is because they had a big business they couldn't afford to fail. It's the same in e-commerce. We started at the biggest because it's the biggest problem. You have the biggest at risk. You have the largest scale. So again, our mature technology, you don't have to start over. We can support your scale. As a matter of fact, there's no e-commerce company bigger than our streaming media company. So our scale is actually overbuilt for e-commerce, even the largest. So that's the reason why we started there. But anyone who's launching an agent will have the same problem. It doesn't matter whether you're a small company or a big company, you are going to have the same problems. You're going to have the same challenges. So if you're a small company and you want to become a big company, launch a great agent and make it really good, make it efficient, make customers love dealing with it, and you will become a big company. If you're a small company and you think, well, I'm not going to invest in that, and I'll invest in that when I become a big company, you'll never become a big company. You're going to hit the same rocks. You just don't have the same cushion they have. Your success will be existential for you. For them, it may be $1 billion in lost revenue and someone's getting in trouble and there's all kinds of tension, but they'll survive. So small companies need to invest the same way as big companies if they want to become a big company.
Amazing. And so with my background also, I care a lot about the measurability. So obviously Conviva is measuring a lot of consumer activity to help inform the agent itself. Um, is there any other insights that Conviva can provide or any issues with, interaction with first party data collection? If it's not a simple decision tree of they said this, do this, then, you can't build in necessarily a tracking tool that shows here's the form responses at each step. But are there any other insights that different business functions can pull from Conviva, whether that's the marketing team understanding, oh, okay, this is, people coming from our video ads seem to be confused about exactly what is available here or what this promotion was. Like, are there any other insights that your clients can pull from what Conviva's collecting?
Absolutely. At the core of what we collect are behavior patterns. We're not a funnel based company. As a matter of fact, we have data that would show that if you're building funnels and journeys in your product analytics, you're only catching a third of your consumers. Imagine that. Two-thirds of your customers do not buy sequentially. Funnels are constructed across digital products as if we go one to the next to the next. What we see is 70% of consumers actually bounce around. They actually don't go through a funnel sequentially. We buy how our brain wants us to process information. So it's not predictable and we're all unique. So the ability for us to collect behavior patterns, not funnel steps, is a critical differentiator. So we will show, for example, a research shopper, which means they come in, they look, they add the cart, they go back to reviews, they go to the shipping costs, they come back out, they lower the cart value, they go back in, they read a review. That means they're bouncing all over the place. That's a
Yeah.
behavior. Now,
Yeah.
if you're a marketer or you're a product person, you need to understand that's how they want to buy from you. You could put them in a funnel all day long. They're still going to bounce around. And so if you're going to create an experience for a research shopper, you need to make sure that the review pages are right off of the add to cart page, and you need to find a way to construct that. Now, here's the problem. Everybody's unique. So therefore, the reason why agents, in our opinion, have to come to e-commerce is an average customer has 500 to 1,000 behavior patterns, right? Makes sense. We're all different people and we can categorize the behavior patterns into buckets and we can show these people had a very similar behavior pattern. There's too many patterns to build a product for. So the value is that the agent will be able to then look at the segment and dimension and what is the optimal behavior pattern. And I can optimize your shopping experience, not just to the fewest steps possible, because in the research shopper, there's a lot of steps. It's very different than the transactional shopper. Agent needs to know the difference. In the transactional shopper, I got to get them in and out quick. The research shopper, I can engage in a little bit longer of a dialogue. You flip those two things and you've got two unhappy customers. So
Yeah.
at the foundation of what we deliver, we collect consumer scale behavior patterns by segment and dimension, and we categorize them into buckets. So you can see very similar patterns of segment and dimension so that your agent can move them through. All of those patterns should be insightful to a product and a marketing person, just looking at
Yeah.
how people want to buy from.
Yeah.
Well, it's a slightly different take on how we provide value to product marketing and agent teams, but it's material. And like I said, 70% of consumers do not buy in funnels. So that means you're running your business on 30% of your consumers, and two-thirds you're blind to how they want to buy from you.
That is not something that I would have ever guessed.
I
That is
well,
brand new information, Keith. I'm spiraling a little bit, but thank you.
I can send
Um,
you the data too. I'm happy to support it, but again, that's why. But if you really stop and think, like you and I buy totally different. And by the way, we buy different products differently. If I go to Nordstrom and I'm buying a T-shirt, I have a behavior pattern. If I go to Nordstrom and I buy a suit, I have a very different behavior pattern. So even as people, we have different patterns.
yeah, yeah,
It stands to reason that that's how we buy in product too. When we log into a digital product, we buy the way our brains work, not the
yeah,
way that was constructed.
yeah. Wow. All right. Well, Keith, I have one more question for you, if you'll allow me. So, you've been with Conviva for over 18 years.
Going on 19.
Um, when I tell people I've been with my company for 12 years, they're shocked. Like, that's so weird. So, what kept you at Conviva for this long? You were there as chief strategy officer for 13 years before becoming president and CEO. So, what is it about Conviva that's worth sticking around for?
I have I'm the fifth Beatle, so I joined after the four founders: Wei Zhang, Jan Stoica, Jabin Zhang, and Aditya Ganjam. Those are the four founders, and then they brought me in, so that's why I call myself the fifth Beatle. Great guys, all really smart, high integrity, high character individuals, and super smart. And my dad always told me, if you're not going to be a valedictorian, be best friends with one. And so I took his advice. So I failed miserably at being a valedictorian. So I now partnered myself with four valedictorians and great guys it's a constant learning environment here. We're always solving a hard problem and then also just loyalty. Like until we get this company, over a finish line, there's a lot of loyalty here. I'm not unique in my timeline here. There's probably 40 employees that have been here longer than 10. I I probably have 20, 30 that have been here longer than 15. Like it's a company that takes pride in our culture, who we are as individuals as well as a company, and we're committed to the mission. And now we have a new mission. We built a great video business, and now here is the greatest revolution to hit humanity. And we could spend time on that sometime, but the greatest revolution ever in humanity, and we're at the epicenter of it with some really good, uh, making the technology work for good.
That's beautiful. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up there. Listeners, if you want to learn more about Keith and Conviva, details will be in the show notes. Otherwise, Keith, thank you so much for joining me today on Data Planet.
Thank you for having me. This has been great. I enjoyed this.